Hi, this is Sue for Parkies and Me, my journey with Parkinson's. So I've been involved with getting some interviews done over the last couple of days, and one lady in particular who I spoke to was Greta Bond, the CEO of Age Concern, and she has got some wonderful ideas and wonderful thoughts on elders' rights, etc. And I feel often there are people who don't see the person in front of them as a person who's had a life that's lived. They just see them as this old person that's not at all interesting. And I wanted to start this interview. I've put this elsewhere as well, but I'd just like to read what Greta had said. Older people have all these fascinating stories, and a lot of times ageism is based on the misunderstanding that people are only what you see before you. And if you ask even the most banal or little question about people's lives, suddenly these huge rainbow panoramas of awesomeness could arrive. Isn't that a wonderful viewpoint on ageing? I think it's just absolutely amazing. She's a wonderful lady, and I've experienced a lot of work with elderly people, and I have some good memories and some not so good memories of those I've been able to work with and the outcomes, and we can't always win them all. But there was one in particular that I started talking about in Greta's podcast, but I'd like to expand upon it. This particular section is about a home visit that I made, and it was a very cold day, and I had a long warm coat, I had a scarf on, I even had mittens, and I may even have had a hat. So, that gives you some indication how cold it was. There was frost on the ground. It was a very chilly winter's day in Canterbury, here in Christchurch. So I had made this appointment, and I came to see this woman, and she was living with her daughter. And I knocked on the door, and the daughter answered the door. And I noted as I walked in that all the doors and windows were wide open. And like I said, this was a very cold day. So I said to her, I've come to see your mum. Is she here? And she said, yes, I'll just go and get her. So I was sitting there, and normally when I got inside the house, I might take off my hat and my coat. Actually, I'd probably take off everything, the hat, the coat, well, not everything. The hat, the coat, the gloves, the scarf around my neck. I would normally have taken those off, but it was so cold in there that I needed to keep them on. And it was so cold that you actually see yourself breathing in the house, which isn't ideal. That shouldn't really happen. So anyway, I was waiting, and I was just sort of sitting there taking stock of the environment, and I noted that there was a heater in the room right next to me, and it was not plugged in or turned on. So anyway, she turns up with her mum, and she's carrying a blanket and some fingerless gloves with her, and she puts the blanket over her mum, and it wasn't a very thick blanket, and she puts the fingerless gloves on her, and I think she was going to go and make me a coffee or something. And before she left, I said to her, it's really cold in here. It's not good for your mum. You need to put a heater on. And she said, oh, Mum doesn't like it too hot in here. She doesn't like the windows and doors shut. And she said, I said, well, you need to shut the windows and doors and turn this heater on. And she said, well, normally if I do that, Mum will get up out of her chair when I go back in the kitchen. And by the time I've come back, she would have opened the windows and the doors again. Now, her mum was very frail, relied on a walker, and even then she had to be kind of supervised because she was so frail. And she could no sooner shut those doors and windows than she could fly to the moon. So the thing that got me was what happened next. So she had sat her mum down, and at my request, the daughter closed the windows, closed the doors, and turned the heater on. As the heater started to heat up, the mother, who the daughter had said didn't like the house too warm, reached out her hands and said, oh, it's so nice to be warm. And gosh, yeah. And this is a daughter that said Mum didn't like the room too hot. So anyway, I left and I went back to work, and I thought I need to do something about this. And I knew that she'd been visited by other people in the community, and so I did a bit of a ring around and asked the OT that had been there, the occupational therapist, and the physiotherapist, and I think there was somebody else that had gone there. And so I contacted them and outlined the scenario of my visit, and without exception they all said that the house was always cold, and they had some concerns about the daughter's care of the mother. So after some conversations, it came about that there was an alert put on her file, and shortly after I'd seen her, surprise, surprise, she ended up in hospital with pneumonia. Now this had not been her first pneumonia. She'd had about 3 or 4 bouts of pneumonia. So, those living conditions were not good for her. So once she was in hospital, the team there were able to organise so that the mum went into residential care so that she could get the warmth and the care that she needed to be well. And so that was a really good team effort that myself and others had noted the issues for this woman and ultimately led to her being in a safer place. So, and in talking to Greta about elder abuse, and she said, it's always good to report these things if you have any concerns. And I know that I contacted them as well, and a plan was made to get the lady into hospital and to get her somewhere safe from there. So that was a really good piece of work. And I think all of us, I hope, would want to be treated with that amount of respect and dignity and concern if we ever found ourselves in that predicament. I have just turned 64 a couple of days ago, and I have grey hair, and I'm currently walking with a stick. And it's interesting the different approaches that you can have from people when you are walking with a stick or with a walker. And there's been many times where I've had to get through heavy doors with a walker, and people are sitting right next to it and don't even think to get up and open the door. And often it's young children or teenagers who will, but people seem to turn a blind eye to your predicament sometimes when you've got grey hair. And it's also interesting, you want to be treated with respect, but I had an appointment that I took a Driving Miss Daisy driver to take me to this appointment, and she was wonderful, helpful and kind, helped me in and out of the car, helped me with my bag, helped me with my stick. And I thought, oh, she's being so kind and so helpful. But there's a little voice inside of me that said, oh, I must be looking old and frail. I don't know if I'm ready to be seen as that, because I don't feel that I am. I'm going through a recovery period, and I will come out stronger. But, it's funny, human nature, isn't it? One side of me thought, she's really lovely and she's really kind. And then the other side of me, the independent side, said, you don't need help getting out of the car. You don't need help with your bag. And I even went into the local pool to check some things out. And she waited for me because it was only going to be 10 minutes. And when I started walking towards the door, she was standing by the glass door that was the entrance to the pool. And she said, it's a heavy door. I thought I'd stand here and open it for you. And again, that was lovely. But it's hard to get your head around that you are now a person that people hold doors open for. Or don't because you're invisible. I don't think there's any way that I would come out on the winning side of this. While it's lovely that somebody wants to open a door for you, it's also strange to feel that you might need that. And I know that's a complete contradiction. What I've just said is a complete contradiction. And it speaks of an internal battle between thinking, hey, look, I've got a stick or I've got a walker and it's hard for me to open that door. You could help. Or I've got a stick or a walker, but I'll bloody well get through that door myself. I don't need help. So, it's hard to help the person that's not sure they want it in the first place. But yeah, just some thoughts on ageing and just some thoughts on that particular lady that I work with, and the hope that any of us that saw that sort of thing happen for somebody like that, an older person that was being forced to live in unsafe living conditions with a family member who isn't caring for them as they should, I would hope that somebody would speak up. So this is Sue being a bit reflective after wonderful interviews with Greta from Age Concern, reflected on my life, my age and stage. And hope that I will get the care that I need when I need it, however that is offered. This has been Sue for Parkies and Me, My Journey with Parkinson's. Kia kaha, be brave, be bold, be you.